Okay, so we have whitewashed the drawers, and while everything is drying, I thought we would go ahead and get started on the graphic. There are so many ways to transfer a quote or a graphic to a piece of furniture. In order to, again, keep this simple, I've just chosen to do the Microsoft Word option. What I did is I found a quote that I liked that I thought would go great with the desk, and I just printed it up in Microsoft Word, and I found a font that I liked. And what I did, you can measure your surface area that you're going to put your image, but unless you're working with an Illustrator program or Photoshop, it's a little bit harder in Word to size it correctly. So what I do before I start is I'll bring my printer paper out and set it on the surface that I'm working on. This allows me to know when I go and print it in poster size how many sheets across and down that I'm going to need to print it on. So I size this one up, print it out, and then most of the time on your printer settings at home, excuse me, you will have guidelines when you print poster settings. And what that does is when you slice it with your paper, it allows you to piece it together and follow those precise lines so you get a nice, perfect image when you're done. Because I'm working with black, I have chosen to cover the back of this with chalk. We are going for simple here, so you don't get much simpler than printing it out in Microsoft Word and just covering it. Just take your chalk sideways and just get a nice good coverage. Now if you were working with a lighter color, you could use a pencil to do this. You could also use graphite paper, which you would just slide under this image, and then it would trace, when you trace the top of it, it would leave an imprint on the surface that you're working on. I use chalk just because it's easier and it wipes away much better. I don't feel like I have a lot of residue. There are some people who will use, when they use pencil, I have found when you're working with lighter surface areas, you can sometimes have leftover pencil marks, and I don't like that in my paints. You can get rid of them, but sometimes you will ruin your finish or smear your paint, so it's just best to try to work with something that's going to be as easily cleaned up as possible. I mean, there's so many ways to transfer an image. I've used a projector. I've used wax paper, and contact paper, and stencils, and all sorts of things. The other thing, if you're using a projector to transfer your image, one thing I will recommend is using watercolor pencils. Those are not the same thing as colored pencils. They're a special pencil that easily dissolves in water. And then I would just recommend using a color close to the paint color that you're using, and it'll blend in really nicely. And if it doesn't, if you have any little areas that are left over after you paint, then you can just wipe it away. Now once you have the entire back side of the image chalked up, go ahead and place it on the surface. And I just took a yardstick and measured in, you know, an equal distance from each side and secured everything with painter's tape. That way you're not going to risk ruining your freshly painted surface. And you can take a pencil or a pen, or really you don't even need anything that writes, just something that will leave a nice indent on the surface. And what this does is this is transferring your image onto the desk with a nice chalk impression. And I always say you don't have to be, if you're going to distress your piece in any way, you don't have to worry about being really precise or perfect, because you're going to come back through with your paintbrush. And that's going to give you an opportunity to shape things the way you want to in the end. Let's see if I can show you here. Make sure I don't move it while I do this. But if you can see there, you have a nice little outline of your image going, and that's perfect for you to come back through with your little artist brush and fill it in. Okay, so once you have your entire image transferred, go ahead and carefully lift it up and just double check and make sure that everything transferred all right. Mine is still connected in the back there. If for some reason something did not transfer or give you a clear enough image, just go ahead and put your chalk over the back of it and lay it down and then just retrace over it. Now you'll notice here, I hope you can see this okay, there is a perfect outline of your text. There's a lot of chalk dust in here. One thing that I've done in the past is I take a very soft bristle paintbrush and just very, very gently go over. See, I've already done it on the bottom here. And it really sets in. If there's any kind of indent in the wood from where you traced your letters, it will show up absolutely beautifully. And this prevents the chalk dust from smearing, and it just gives your paint a better grip on the surface rather than trying to slide over all that chalk dust. You'll be surprised, once you do a few of these, you'll be able to start freehanding beautifully. I think I'm at the point now where I can freehand about 50% of the projects that I do. Okay, so now you have this beautiful image there and you can start painting it. Alright, so now that you've brushed off all of your chalk dust, go ahead and I just get myself a little cup of paint, and in this case I'm going to use the cream that I used on the side panels and the drawer fronts, I guess I should say. And then go ahead and just get yourself an assortment of brushes. You're going to want just some flat brushes and some nice liner brushes, and then a few of your more full brushes. Especially when you're dealing with something a little bit more intricate, you want to be able to make sure you have a brush to get in every angle and every area of it without creating a mess or going outside of the lines. So I tend to just grab a handful and just keep them nearby. And then all you have to do at this point is start going over your image with your paint. One thing I will tell you, I also have used these in the past, they make paint pens. So for those of you who don't feel like you have a steady hand or you wouldn't trust yourself doing this with a brush, you can get, they make fine and medium point paint pens. And then it's just a matter of drawing over it, which I know a lot of people really like to do that. So I'm going to get started painting this in and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we've gotten all of our lettering done, and we're at that point now where we're going to go ahead and start distressing the desk. I kind of zoomed in here so you could get a little bit of a better look, and I'll get some close-ups here in a minute. One of the things that you want to keep in mind with distressing, there are many ways to do it. People have used everything from paint scrapers to ice picks to hammers and chains. It really just depends on the look that you're going for your piece. For this piece, I just want it to look more time-worn. Meaning, you know, if somebody sat here and wrote the desk, it just kind of wore away at the paint. I'm not looking for chips or gouges or that chippy paint look. I'm looking for just a really weathered, faded out look. So I'm going to stick with sandpaper, and I have everything, I think, from 150 to 220 here. And I do that just so that on the different areas that I can kind of get that feel that I want. I am going to stick to the edges. Anything that somebody would sit here and write or read or whatever, it's going to get most of the wear and tear. So you've got the center part of the desk here, anywhere that a chair would be pushed in and out. Of course, you know, I'm going to stick to sandpaper, and I'm just going to start by hitting the edges. This here is 150 grit, so it's not too crazy of a grit, but I like to hit my edges with a little bit of a heavier grit, just because your edges are going to really take most of the abuse. And I'm not getting carried away, I'm not getting into the little curves. I'm just going with what would naturally be hit as you set. going to get it a little bit heavier in the center area and kind of taper off as I get above the drawers over here. And really, as far as distressing goes, it's such a personal preference. I mean, just consider your piece and how it would have been used and the area that you're going to keep it in and how you want it to look. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. And there's so many different fun techniques out there. You can see, I like to keep a big soft paintbrush handy to get my dust away so I can kind of see where I'm at and how much I've taken off. So as you can see there, it's actually looking nice and worn. Okay, so everything has been sanded down. As you can see, I kind of just gave it a really thorough once over. Got that nice faded out look to it. But my wood is still just a little bit lighter than I would want it. So I need to do something to add a little bit of depth back into it. One of the things that I like to use to do that is just a nice stain. On this one, I'm going to go ahead and use just a dark walnut. Honestly, just a rag. Use gloves, and you should probably use a mask when you do this. I have fans going over there, so it's pretty ventilated in here. And this is going to be a technique that you're just going to do very quickly. You're pretty much going to take it off as soon as you put it on. Yeah, and you can already see how much better that looks. And then just come in with a rag and you're just going to wipe it back down. And that's going to give that wood that nice deep color that you want. And I'll get some close-ups here in a minute so you can see just a little bit better. But to show you, we're going to do the same thing on the drawer fronts and the side panels. I realize that they're a cream color and they're probably going to grab pretty good. But that's what we want. So we are going to just do the exact same technique to the drawer fronts here. We really just want to get it on there and then you're just going to wipe it back down. With this, I usually wipe more than once. Every time you wipe, you're going to get just a little bit more off until it's got that nice... You can see how much that color changed already. That's what I'm going for. I want that nice, rich depth of color for this. And the nice thing about doing this is it's not only going to catch the wood, it's also going to catch the lettering and actually the black paint. It will deepen up that color as well. So that is what we are going for. That looks so much better. So I'm going to finish doing that and then we'll be back to finish it off. Okay, so I've gotten the entire desk stained. And one thing I do want to mention, I know I rushed that last part just a little bit. I was working between 3 appointments and I wanted to get it filmed. One thing I want to be really clear on is when you're working with waxes and stains and paints or poly, anything that's going to have a strong chemical odor, it is extremely important that you wear your respirator and that you're working with a lot of cross ventilation. That stuff contains some pretty harsh chemicals. Now, like I said, there are some products out there now, like the chalk paints that are environmentally friendly and they're green, which is great. If you're working with that, no problem. But I know this bad boy here tends to have some fumes. So what I've decided to do is wax the desk. I could have polyed it, but I like to go with the wax with the weathered finishes just because it gives a nice sheen, not so much of a shine or a gloss, and it still gives it that protection. This is what I'm using. It's Johnson's Paste Wax. It's very, very thick And I like to use lint-free cloths. I just cut up old t-shirts, really soft t-shirts, perfect for the job. And all you're going to do with this is just put it on, going with the grain of the wood, and then wait until it hazes over, kind of dries up a little bit, and you're just going to buff it off. And I will tell you, I tend to buff twice, just because when I buff the first time, it removes most of the product and gives it a little bit of sheen. Wait a little bit longer and you buff the second time, it's going to give you a lot more shine. Let's see. And you really don't need much of this. The more you put on, the more you're going to have to work to get it off. It's one of those products where less is more. I mean, actually, that's quite a bit of wax right there. So, I apologize for that. We're just kind of putting it on, and we're going to let it haze over. Now you are seeing a little bit of the stain that I used as a glaze come off, but not enough of it comes off to really make a difference. I appreciate you guys bearing with me while I work out of my dining room. It's extremely cold here in the Midwest, and my shop currently doesn't have heat, so this is where I'm working right now, but I think our subsequent videos will probably be a little bit better than this. And when I work with wax, I work in sections. You could do the whole thing, but I find that you don't want to wait till your wax is too dry. Meaning you really just want to give it just enough time to haze over and then buff it off. The longer you let it sit, the harder it's going to be to remove. And I did this part about 15 minutes ago so I could show you without you having to wait. Yeah, that ought to do it. And as you can see, I really just didn't put too much on. And then you want to take a clean cloth and you're just going to buff it off. You can see that sheen starting to come out. And I really wish black was a little bit better to photograph or video, because you really just cannot see the depth of color on this desk. It's actually quite beautiful. Now as you can see, it's got a really nice sheen to it actually, but when I come back and buff it again here in about an hour, it's really going to just pump it up a notch. And that's all there is to waxing. And like I had mentioned earlier, one of the little things that you can do, if this is an older desk, if your drawers are sticking, one of the things you can also do is wax your drawer glides underneath, which will help them glide in and out a whole lot smoother for you. Okay, so here's the finished desk. For the wax, I went ahead and did 4 coats. I gave 2 coats to the entire body, and the top got a total of 4 coats. And I do that because the top's going to take a lot of wear and tear, and I just feel like it gives it a little bit more durability. And then I added some crystal knobs, and that was just a simple process of when you buy your hardware, it's going to come sometimes with a longer base than what you need. And so basically I just took a hacksaw to the back, and a lot of times I will countersink my hardware. I didn't with this one. Choice is yours. But I thought the crystal added just an adorable little touch to it. And of course I waxed all the drawer glides. But there you have it. You have started and finished a piece that will be completely unique to your home, and you can say that you created it with your own 2 hands. Like I said when we started, I hope that this really touched base on a lot of the questions that I've been asked and that I have answered, but I hope I'm very visual. and I love to be shown how to do stuff, and even better yet, I love to just dig in and do it. It doesn't matter what it is. I love to just rip stuff apart and figure out how it works. So I'm hoping by giving y'all a visual that it just kind of helped out just to see the process, and that maybe you're not going to be so afraid to, you know, grab that piece or pick up a piece at a yard sale or the Goodwill store and have at it. There's, you know, there's not much that can go wrong, and especially if it's your first time, just sticking to a piece that is of minimal, you know, financial value, so that if you feel like you horribly ruined it, you're not going to stress out about it. But paint is one of the most forgiving mediums that you could ever play with. So my recommendation is honestly just play and have fun and let your creative side out. And if you are just not that kind of person, you will just never ever paint anything, well, that's what I'm here for. So feel free to give me a call and I will whip your furniture right into shape. So I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this. Hope you learned something, and still, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to email me. My contact information is all on this page, and I will get back to you with an answer as soon as possible. Thank you.